Once upon a time, there was an old farmer. He had worked his crops for many years with just one horse. One day, his horse ran away, and upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. "Such bad luck," they exclaimed sympathetically. "Perhaps," the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it three other wild horses. "What great luck!" the neighbors exclaimed. "Perhaps," the farmer replied. The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, was thrown off the back of the horse, and broke his leg. The neighbors came again, rushing to offer their sympathy on the farmer's misfortune. And once again, the farmer replied, "Perhaps." The day after, military officials came rushing to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out for him. "Perhaps," the farmer replied. I admire the farmer because even through what seemed to be misfortune, what seemed to be a downfall or a setback, he was able to never judge the situation and remain optimistic. "Perhaps," he would say, "perhaps." This sets the tone for reimagining, which is what this year has forced upon us. It is my honor and pleasure to be your 2021 Keynote speaker for a celebration of a year of virtual learning and virtual service. If you would have told me a year ago that I would be in this position, I would be in pure disbelief. I was still trying to figure out how I could possibly navigate attending my historically Black college, Howard University, in Washington, D.C., virtually via Zoom, while physically located in Oceanside, California. Service in itself requires a great deal of commitment and assessment. To be able to reimagine servant leadership to fit the mold of virtual reality takes an overwhelming amount of dedication and optimism. I came home from DC, from living the best of my college years to feeling purposeless here at home. It wasn't until I got a random phone call that initiated my paradigm shift. "Venus, I need you. I want you to be my campaign manager." These were the words of Kelly Davis, who was running for Oceanside City Council District 3. This was the call of a lifetime. I went from being devastated about leaving my dream school to doing one of my dream jobs. Realizing that what seemed to be misfortune was just redirection. I had to reimagine running a campaign at the peak of a pandemic. This taught me so much, and I developed skills and tools that I would not have been able to get without this experience. What seemed to be a setback was actually intended to be a setup. It set me up for what I actually desired most, which was service, pure, genuine, authentic service. It gave me the opportunity to serve in a way that I had been learning about in my textbooks. Political engagement and involvement in action. I went from studying about service and leadership to being on the front lines of just that at such a pivotal time in our world's history. Like I said before, service requires a great deal of commitment and assessment. I learned to assess my perspectives through the transition of change. Charles Darwin says that it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. Again, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. I had to be creative. I had to be proactive to combat the changes that were happening around me. Many of my peers were negatively basking in the fact of the matter, which was, yeah, we were stuck at home while attending our prospective schools. But the way I chose to see it was that I was so lucky to be able to go to school in DC, attend an extracurricular activity meeting in New York, engage with my community, and head a campaign here in Oceanside, all at the same time. Shifting my perspective maximized my virtual experience. The power of perspective is monumental to any level of success. It reminds me of a quote from William Shakespeare, which says that nothing is neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Being on the campaign trail not only showed me the true effects of the power of my thinking and perspective, however, it also elevated my views on civic service and engagement. I have been committed to elevating the voices of my community and igniting change, which in itself requires a shift in my thinking. I've learned the value of community networking and outreach. In September of last year, I gave a speech honoring the late and great Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which exclaimed not only my yearn for more youth to be involved in local policy and civic duties, however, during that speech, I also exclaimed my hopes of making it to the White House. To make such a huge declaration in front of a large crowd of my community leaders did one thing. It told my peers my trajectory and allowed them to uphold me to my own standards, my own dream, my own goal. You have to be bold about where you're headed. You have to be willing to tell everyone in your path where you want to be in hopes that your community can support and assist you there. My network grew tremendously. It was no longer bound by just my physical environment. However, it expanded as I maximized my virtual outlook as well. Realizing my community's role in my success is prominent. The moments and experiences here in my community are what shape me and continually propel me to the next level. Everything happens by design. My moments and lessons at Oceanside High School, as a Miss Oceanside Princess, as an intern at KOCT News, and as a Umoja MiraCosta Summer Bridge student, and so forth are what carry me and contribute to my everlasting leadership. This is my community. The networks you build create a company that can complement your life in ways you don't even understand yet. It's not always for you to understand in that moment. What's important is that you understand the value of serving your community in hopes that it can in turn serve you too. When you move in the intention of service, you impact the world in such a beautiful and monumental way. True servant leadership is like a relay race. You have the baton. What are you going to do with your stretch of the race? And how are you going to choose to respond to a detour? Use your setback as a set up for a step up. Take pride in your ability to reimagine service learning. Take pride in this community and keep a perhaps mentality, just like the farmer did. Let this experience shape you and lead you to an even greater one. Thank you in advance for your servant leadership. This is your stretch of the race. What are you going to do with it?